We're finally talking about the application itself, and I'm using DICAS as the basis because most dietetic internships require the DICAS centralized application, but there are a number of internships to which you can apply directly. They will have their own application process, and while much of the information will overlap and the advice that I give regarding your application would be the same, there may be some things that are omitted in an application directly to a college or an internship program, and there may be additional information that they would require. So keep that in mind. You can find that information either on the program's website or in the applicant guide to supervised practice, which I mentioned last time. Again, my name is Arlene Grant-Holcomb. I'm a retired DPD director, and I love advising and I love sharing information. And so we're going to get into the contact information, basically the first 5 parts of the application that are listed on this screen, and then we'll move on in the next video to the next parts. First thing that you'll see when you log into DICAS and you have created an account is this homepage, and I call it a roadmap to all parts of the application. You do not have to complete this application in any particular order, although there are some parts that will need to be completed before some other parts, and I'll try to touch on those when we come to them. The timeline, typically I begin advising spring applicants, so applicants whose application is due mid-February. I begin advising them in our fall quarter with classes on this topic or a seminar on this topic that runs September, October, November, and a little bit of December. And I urge them, those students, to begin building their application at that time so they can do it a little bit at a time. I have had 2 students, memorable students that I can think of, that did not apply when they were seniors, went on to do other things, and then later decided they wanted to apply and didn't reach out to me about the process until literally February the 1st. So it was just 2 weeks before everything was due. They were ready to apply. They were no longer in school, so they didn't have school obligations. So it is definitely possible to finish this application in a short amount of time, but that's not what I recommend. I recommend starting as early as possible. Even if you're an undergrad and you're not going to apply for another year, put in the things that you're able to put in and get familiar with what you're going to be asked so that you can be thinking about it as you have time and are able to build different parts of the application. The nice thing about this homepage is that it does show you which parts of the application are incomplete or completed, required. It shows where your transcript status is. What about your references? Have they submitted? And have you asked for your DPD verification or planned in progress acknowledgement? And then it also shows if you have paid and I guess how much it would cost. And all that is visible on this page. I always say start with the contact information because this is the easiest part of the application. It is not intimidating. It requires both a current address and a permanent address. Usually the permanent address will be your parents' home address. On the other hand, if you know for certain that your parents are relocating, or you know for certain that you are, perhaps you are an older student and you have been independent for a long time, and so obviously you would then put your own permanent address. But you want to be sure that if your school address is going to change, that you give another address that's going to be there longer and more consistently. A phone. Not too many of us have landline phones anymore. So it's most commonly, this is going to be your cell phone, but it does give you an opportunity to enter a home phone, a work phone, and a cell phone. So please include all of those. If you don't want to list a home phone, you can just put your cell phone in that field and then repeat it down in the cell phone category, and then let them know which one you prefer. Also, this asks for an email, and it's very important here that this be an email that you'll have after college. At Cal Poly, for example, our students at calpoly.edu email address only stays with them for a few months after graduation. So it's important to have a Gmail, a Yahoo Mail, a Hotmail, iCloud, whatever email provider you prefer. And this is a good time also that if you don't have an email that includes your name, this is a good time to create a new email account that will become your professional email account. This is a good time to get rid of fun at the beach, or I love chocolate. Those are all great. They're fun. It's just time to move into a more professional sounding email. So some combination of your first and last name, or initials with first and last name, or even middle name if you need to have it be unique. Think about that and have that be an email that would be available to you. Then, as you move into the next page is the personal information page. And this is where the first question is about citizenship. And so you would indicate if you are a US citizen, a permanent resident, or something else. You would indicate your country of citizenship, regardless of what that country is. And then you would indicate if you hold a visa. Now, if you are a US citizen, you don't have a visa, and so you would put no. On the other hand, if you are an international student and you are going to school here, then you would indicate that you do have a visa. You would include the date that it was issued, the date that it will expire, and then the square with the check in the top is the drop-down menu for the type of visa that you have. And these are important because it has to do with the duration of how long you'll be able to stay in the US after you complete your undergraduate or graduate education. And there are times when, if you do an internship only, there may be issues with the visa. So this is something to work out with your the department at school that helps you with this, the State Department, or the programs that you are applying to. So it's very important to accurately reflect the type of visa that you have. Then you will you'll answer each of those questions. It's also very important to indicate if you are a veteran, particularly if you are applying to VA hospitals. Not that they necessarily give overt preference to veterans, but they certainly value service. And so I think that would be very important to indicate. Include your preferred first name. If it's something other than your given first name, then that would be on your school records, this is the time to include that. You also can indicate on this page if you know another language other than English. And I clicked on the drop-down menu, and there are hundreds of languages listed. So I'm confident that if English is not your first language, or if you are proficient in another language other than English, that language will be listed there. If it is not, then it's something I would simply include in your personal statement. Also, it's important if you have school records or other important records in other names. Either you've had a name change, you've married, you've divorced, you've been adopted. There could be a variety of reasons. Be sure to include any other first or last names that may appear on your records. Also, I forgot to mention with the language, Um, Estimate whether you consider yourself a beginner, an intermediate, or advanced in that language. In my experience here in the US, the only second language that students have been questioned about in any depth, it would be Spanish. And I have known of a couple of students that have actually had, where programs highly value Spanish fluency, applicants have had their interviews conducted in Spanish as an assessment of their conversational skills. So I wouldn't worry too much if you're not sure if you're really a beginner or if you're intermediate or advanced. Give it your best estimate. Now this section is tricky. This page on background information asks, I think it's 6 or 7, I've got 4 of the questions on this page that are very personal and could have a significant impact on your ability to match or your ability to be placed in rotations. The first question: has disciplinary action in writing of any sort ever been taken against you by a supervisor, educational or training institution, healthcare institution, professional association, or licensing certification board? This question, and really most of the other questions, are questions to talk over first with your own DPD director. And again, if your DPD director is not in your immediate proximity, this is the time to set up a phone call with them, because talking over what you think might be disciplinary action, getting clarification from them will be necessary. It's also important with all of these questions that this should not be the first time that program directors are learning about this. If there has been discipline, if there have been complaints against you, if there has been a decision in a civil suit related to your professional work, or something pending, or if you have ever been put on probation, suspended, terminated, or asked to resign by a graduate or internship training program or employer, including military service. If any of those things apply to you, first get clarity to be sure it is indeed something that fits in that category, and then reach out to the program director of the programs you're interested in. Explain the situation and ask them, first of all, explain how you intend to answer the question and if that seems appropriate to them. And secondly, ask if they see that as a barrier to your ability to be considered for the program, or even if considered, could you be placed in rotations? Most of you will be able to say no to all of these things, but you should consider them carefully and definitely talk them over, get a second opinion as you discuss them, and then as you talk about them with a program director. Don't surprise a program director with this information. Be upfront about it. This page, these are the continued, this is the bottom of that same background information page. And this page is even trickier. Not the first question, but the first question on this page: have you ever reneged on a DICAS internship match, pardon my spelling error, without prior approval from DICAS and the internship site? This is a big deal. This is why I've said, and I will continue to say, don't ever apply to a program that you would not be thrilled to participate in, even if it's your second or third or fourth choice. Don't apply just thinking, well, if I get in, I don't have to go. It's a really big deal in the dietetics world that if you are matched, that you accept that match and that you give everything necessary to be successful in that program. There obviously are important reasons why a student would have to decline a match, and that would involve conversation with the program director, sometimes with D&D Digital. Sometimes you can withdraw your name from consideration, before the match would happen. That would not leave a program director with an open spot. You might have a death in the family. You might have an illness. You might have a significant change in financial situation. You might be pregnant, and that wasn't planned. So there could be a variety of very valid reasons. But again, something like a pregnancy, that I guess unless you found out about it right before match day, if you knew about it leading up to it, that's something I would talk over with the program director, and then potentially consider having them withdraw your application and then reapplying in good standing the following year. That way you don't have to say that you've reneged. And I put a definition down there. It's basically to go back on a promise, undertaking, or contract. The idea with this match is that if you match, you will accept the match. And that's an expectation. It's not a written contract, but it's a professional expectation. So it's really, really important that you never withdraw or decline a match casually. The second one, have you ever been convicted of an offense against the law other than a minor traffic violation? And then lastly, have you ever been convicted of a felony? These two also are not common, but they do happen. Students have a variety of driving under the influence. I had a student with a drunken disorderly conviction. In states where marijuana is against the law, they had marijuana possession. Now that's changing in some states, and so that could have an impact on what appears on your record. But again, it's very important if any of these are something, the first one would not show up on a background check, but the other two are. And this is critically important for placement, primarily in healthcare and schools. And if anything would show up on your record as a surprise, it could devastate your success in completing a dietetic internship. So you'd want to talk about it in advance, talk about it with both your own DPD director and the program director, and then find out what you need to do in order to be successful. I have known students that have had these in their past, have been forthright about it, and have successfully matched in the future. And so the key thing is to be honest and that there be no surprises for program directors, especially at the point when you get to the internship. Because that, again, every student has to be background checked to rotate in a hospital or in a school and even in some other environments. And this could preclude you from doing that. So follow through on that with others who can advise you more specifically. This page is a pretty easy page. In order to participate in DICAS and matching, you must also register with D&D Digital. This is a separate company, a separate platform that is the matching service that will match you with the program that ranks you the highest. Assuming a program has ranked you highly and you rank them highly, there is a process for matching you with that program. And again, I'll talk in a little more detail about that in another video. But you have to at least have created your account in D&D so that you can enter the D&D digital ID number in this space. That's all you have to put here. And again, if you are applying to programs that do not use D&D digital, then you can actually just check here, and there's sort of an alternate method you can use that I probably should have looked up, but I didn't. The good news here is you do not have to have finalized your program selections at this point, and you do not have to have finalized your rankings. You just need to have the account so that you can enter in the account number. When you do finalize, all of your program designations that you've indicated in DICAS, every program that you've put in there, must also be ranked in D&D Digital. And all of the programs that you've ranked in D&D Digital must have a corresponding DICAS application. And surprisingly, this field is relatively new within the last few years. We have always told students it was a two-part process, and surprisingly, there would always be a few students who would complete their DICAS application and forget to create a D&D account. And so, of course, they wouldn't match because there was no opportunity for the system to match them with a program. And what a tragedy that would be if you go to all the work, you think you're applying, and then you end up unmatched because there's no mechanism to match you. So that was a suggestion to make sure that applicants had a D&D Digital account, was simply to ask for their account number at this point in the application. The next link or the next field in the application asks for the DPD course list form. This is a form that your DPD director has created. I've shared with you a sample of the DPD course list form from Cal Poly for the last catalog cycle. Again, university catalogs change sometimes every 1, 2, or 3 years. And what that means is that course requirements might actually change from catalog to catalog. And we've seen that happen at Cal Poly, where we have either changed courses, we've renamed them, sometimes we add additional course requirements. And so each catalog year will have specific course requirements. It's common for those requirements to stay the same over many years, but it's equally common for changes to occur. So always choose, if you're given the option, choose the DPD course list that corresponds with the catalog that you will be graduating under. And it should say that in your university portal or on your transcript. It should say which catalog you are on, and it'll be by year. It's a PDF file. At Cal Poly, we have them in a website. Applicants can download for their appropriate catalog as a PDF, and then on this page, they can navigate to the file and then upload it here. This is required. It's also to help you, because you'll notice that on the left, it says DPD professional courses, and on the right, it says DPD Science. The sequencing might be different on yours. This is a form that I filled out, but it is what DI program directors will compare with transcripts and courses that you have entered into as DPD courses. And this helps you to know, well, is this a professional course or is this a science course, as determined by your program. If you don't see the DPD course list, if you don't have ready access to it, again, that's something to reach out to your program director and ask her for. The DPD course list will come from your didactic program in dietetics. That's enough about that part of the application. When we come back, we'll talk about colleges attended and entering coursework. Thank you so much. Keep working on those applications, and I'll be back soon.